3-foot-high stumps as wide as kitchen tables once covered northern Wisconsin, promising fortune to hopeful settlers but defeating axes, horses, and even mechanical rigs. After World War I, officials turned to dynamite, arming 5,000 farmers to wage a war against roots centuries old. They cleared 135,000 acres in a few years, yet their triumph hit a fatal flaw. Why did so many dreams still implode when the explosion stopped? In the wake of the logging boom, northern Wisconsin became a maze of stumps, each one a monument to the vanished forests. Across counties like Ashland, Bayfield, and Oneida, the ground bristled with remnants of white pine and hemlock, some stumps standing 3 or 4 feet tall, as broad as a kitchen table. The roots ran even deeper, 6 feet across in places, tangled and hardened by centuries underground. These weren't just scattered obstacles, they covered hundreds of thousands of acres stretching to every horizon. A farmer could walk a mile and never leave the shadow of these wooden giants. Plows jammed and snapped against the roots. Horses stumbled and strained, unable to gain a foothold. Even the most determined settler faced a landscape that seemed deliberately hostile to the plow. The sheer density and size of the stumps made the idea of turning this land into productive fields feel almost impossible. If you're fascinated by forgotten American industrial history, subscribe to see more stories of human determination against impossible odds. Railroad brochures promised a land of golden wheat and easy prosperity. Settlers like the Haugland family arrived in northern Wisconsin with trunks packed full of hope and seed. What they found instead was a battlefield of roots and splinters. The ground, stripped of its forests, was littered with stumps so dense that a plow couldn't move more than a few feet before jamming. Brochures had shown neat rows of crops under wide blue skies, but the reality was far grimmer. Fields broken by jagged wood, the air thick with the scent of damp rot and sawdust. In letters home, some settlers confessed to clearing only 3 stumps in a week, their hands blistered and backs aching. Every meal, every chore, every sunrise began and ended with the shadow of another stump waiting to be tackled. The promise of rich farmland faded with each swing of the axe, replaced by a growing sense that the land itself was testing their will. Axes struck the stumps with a dull thud, splintering at the edges, but barely making a dent. Settlers tried every tool they owned. Picks and mattocks chipped away at the surface, but the ancient pine was too tough, the roots too tangled. Teams of horses strained against heavy chains, hooves digging furrows into sandy soil as they tried to wrench the stumps free. Sometimes the chain snapped, more often the stump didn't budge at all. A full day's work might free a single stump, if luck held. By the early 1900s, agricultural agents like Carl Larson traveled from farm to farm, offering new hope in the form of mechanical stump-pulling rigs. Farmers scavenged iron gears and pulleys from scrap piles, building contraptions that multiplied the force of horse teams. These rigs offered a glimmer of progress, but even then, the best outcome was 1 stubborn stump per day. The land resisted every effort, swallowing time and hope. Something more radical was needed to break the deadlock. If you want to uncover more stories of American grit and ingenuity, subscribe for the next chapter in this battle against the stumps. In makeshift classrooms and chilly barns, Wisconsin farmers gathered around tables littered with sticks of dynamite and spools of fuse. University instructors, some with backgrounds in wartime engineering, stood at chalkboards, sketching out the math behind a controlled blast. Every stump required careful calculation. A chart pinned to the wall showed that a 30-inch pine might need 3/4 of a pound, while a smaller birch could be shifted with half that. Farmers took notes, learning to pack charges deep under the main roots, tamping the hole with clay to direct the explosion downward. Safety drills became routine. Ear protection was handed out, and instructors insisted on strict fuse-cutting protocols, no guesswork, no shortcuts. Men who had spent their lives coaxing crops from the ground now practiced lighting fuses and retreating behind earthen berms, hearts pounding as the seconds ticked down. By the end of each session, these growers had become something new, a community of amateur blasters ready to take their new skills into the fields. Dawn broke over the Northwoods and the silence was shattered. Farmers, some still wearing their Sunday shirts, loaded crates of dynamite onto wagons and trudged out to the stump fields. The first charges were packed deep beneath roots older than the nation itself. A hiss of fuse, a scramble for cover, and then thunder rolled across the pines. The earth leapt, flinging splinters skyward, rattling windows in distant farmhouses. Neighbors gathered at fence lines, counting the seconds between blasts, measuring progress not in acres but in explosions. Stumps that had mocked generations finally surrendered, torn from the soil in seconds. Where an axe and a team of horses might have managed one stump a day, now a single farmer could clear 8, sometimes 10, before dusk. The rhythm of the land changed. A morning's work, a midday blast, an afternoon of hauling shattered roots. For the first time, the dream of open fields seemed within reach. The Northwoods echoed with the sound of victory. By 1922, the numbers told a story that once seemed impossible. County records tallied up 135,000 acres of land cleared, an area larger than the city of Milwaukee, all blasted free of stumps that had stood for centuries. Newspaper headlines from Ashland to Rhinelander celebrated the feat, calling it one of the largest stump clearing campaigns in American history. Maps in county courthouses began to show new fields where, just a few years earlier, only deadwood and tangled roots had ruled. For the first time, farmers could drag a plow in a straight line from one end of a field to the other. The scale of the transformation was staggering. Hundreds of square miles opened up, the result of dynamite, sweat, and stubborn hope. In church basements and town halls, people spoke with pride about the land they had won back from the wilderness. The numbers felt like a victory. Solid, measurable proof that the Northwoods could be tamed. But beneath the surface, another challenge was waiting. Northern Wisconsin's population map started bleeding away. Between 1920 and 1930, more than 8,000 people left the northern counties. Whole families packing up, their hopes dashed by fields that refused to yield. County auditors watched tax rolls shrink, red ink spreading across ledgers as abandoned farms piled up. Loan defaults surged, with nearly 15% of agricultural mortgages going unpaid. Banks shuttered their doors. Empty farmhouses sagged in the weeds, their windows broken, their barns collapsing into the grass. The land that had once echoed with dynamite and ambition now stood silent, marked by the absence of those who had tried to make it home. Decades after the last stump was blasted, quiet fields surrendered to nature's slow advance. Aspen and birch saplings pushed through old furrows, reclaiming ground where dynamite once thundered and plows failed. Abandoned farmsteads faded into thickets, but the land found a new purpose. Today, these regrown forests stretch across northern Wisconsin, drawing hikers, anglers, and campers from across the country. The region's wild beauty now fuels a tourism economy valued at over $85 million per year. Walk far enough into the woods and you might still stumble on a flat clearing or a shallow crater, a silent reminder of the battle fought between people and the land. Subscribe now for more untold stories of American ambition, failure, and the lessons written in abandoned fields. No amount of dynamite could make thin, sandy soil into rich farmland. As one forest manager put it a century later, technology alone cannot rewrite soil. The people who battled the cutover, Meyer, Nelson, Larson, and thousands like them, proved what determination can do. But the land delivered the final verdict. In the end, the forest reclaimed what the axe and dynamite could not. If you value stories where human grit meets the limits of nature, subscribe for more history that still shapes the world around us. Today, Wisconsin's forests and lakes fill land once rocked by dynamite, reminders that not all landscapes can be remade by force or ingenuity. The legacy is clear. Human ambition faces limits set by nature itself. Sometimes the land's true value emerges only after dreams have cleared.